Next, and then
Lála Bríide is iontu an rud bhfuil corramíocht ban faoiara sa seomra seo agus pógorgeachas on St. Bridget's Day. We've arrived at gender equality. I would call it gender equality. I would call it gender equality when we get 4 women at the table for the first time in my 2 years. I also acknowledge the 2 gentlemen at the back. I'm specifically talking about the front table. Yeah, you're very welcome. And congratulations on a clear audit. And a lot of the questions have been asked, and it was interesting for me to read this. So just a quick, putting it in context for me, you talked about all of the scoping organisations are on board now. So there was a scoping exercise, is that right?
That's
that looked at which organisations or which departments were willing to come on board, or what?
They, when the feasibility study looked at whether shared services made sense or not, and whether this was something that the government wanted to do, there was a business case developed, and the business case looked at all of the central government departments, and it looked at any bodies that may have been bodies under the aegis of those central government departments that may have been utilising their technology or utilising their application. So when I talk about the scope of bodies, that is set out in each single business case for HR, for payroll and for finance shared services. And then that business case went to government for a decision.
And under that scoping exercise, the decisions made then, how many organisations were to come on board, or how many departments?
In the case of HR, 40 bodies. In the case of payroll, 52. And in the case of finance, 48. And
just give us those figures again.
40.
40, yeah.
52 for payroll and
yeah.
48 for finance shared services.
So when I read Chapter 10, then I see that 39 departments have transferred to HR, to People Point. So that's one short, is it? Or
that's correct.
One short. And what is that one?
It is in relation to the houses of the Oireachtas.
And why hasn't that come on board?
Neither the HR or payroll have transferred across to us yet. We have looked at the service requirements of the House of the Oireachtas with senior management in the houses, and there are service requirements that at this time we don't think that we can support from our HR Shared Service Centre with the technology that we have. And so there is also a significant body of change and change management that would need to be done within the houses themselves before we would be confident that we could provide a level of service.
I think she's saying because people work so long and hard here, it's, you know,
that's okay. That's
okay. Special
so
case.
We're 39 and we're short 1. And then we go to the next was payroll, was 52. And the Controller's report says 43 had transferred. Is that right?
That's now, obviously, 2017 has seen all of the remaining departments and bodies
have
that
all
were
transferred.
Due to transition in have now transitioned in.
Have all done?
Correct.
Okay. And just then clarify to me, so this whole new system, and you're based in 4 locations and a number of other offices, including your own, and they're all rented.
We're in OPW, we're in state accommodation.
Are you paying rent, or who's paying rent? Because this is a constant confusion
it's
before
OPW. OPW, we don't pay rent. We are using existing buildings that were already within the state.
That's great, but that's great, yeah. Okay. And then you have People Point, which is part of the system, which is about pensions administration and human resources, and the name on it is People Point, is that right? And then you have payroll shared services, which accounts for the paying out of money, the pensions being paid out. Have all the organisations that you've mentioned bought into both of those? No.
Have they all?
Have they bought into both People Point and payroll?
Yes.
All on board both systems?
All on board both systems.
Of the ones you've mentioned?
Correct, of the ones that were in scope. They're all in.
Okay. Now, valuable points have been made by my colleague here in relation to the savings of money. Are you in a position to comment on that other than what you've commented on?
I don't think I can explain any further. Each business case was evaluated on its own merit. If it didn't make sense, it didn't go ahead. And in fact, there was one service area that was looked at with the Department of Finance for banking shared services, and we did a feasibility study, and we found that the cost benefit didn't stack up, so we didn't proceed with that.
Okay.
So in each case we look at what services could be in scope, and if those services could be provided in a shared services environment with technology, what would the service quality be, and what would the cost savings be to the taxpayer if we proceeded? Okay. And in each and every case, we go through that process. There's a very rigorous, robust evaluation
Presumably
process.
at the end of this year, there will be an evaluation done by some independent body in relation to the savings achieved.
We certainly will look at that, but I think...
Is there a plan to do that?
Yes, but it's important for the committee to understand that the savings arise only when the centre is established, because that's when it's at its efficiency.
It is established.
Correct.
Now.
So
okay.
Now we're in year one.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And at the end of year one, wouldn't it be very appropriate to do an analysis?
And we even monitor it ourselves internally from a benefits realisation point of view, but we will carry out.
So this time next year, hopefully we're all here, maybe the Chair might be able to tell us, you'd be able to tell us what savings have been made? We
certainly intend to carry out an evaluation.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then in relation to some of the specific things, the Controller and Auditor General's report says at the end of 2016 there were 388 cases outstanding for more than a year with no recoupment plan. Is that been dealt with?
That has changed significantly during 2017.
Yeah, who can tell me how that has changed? Have the 388 cases been dealt with? Have they all had recoupment plans put in place? Are they...
I'll ask Ms Lyons to take that one. Thank you.
So I think the total picture perhaps at the end of 2016 was 1982 cases.
It's not 388.
That 388 I think referred to cases that were more than 1 year old.
That's right.
Correct?
That's right. At the end of there were 388 cases.
Yeah.
Value 1.1.
So what I can tell you is, and again I think I referred earlier to a much more robust reporting process that we have, where we're looking at cases for 2017, 16 and before to know where everything is at.
Yes.
So we can see all those cases going through the process. Now there could be, and again without getting into individual cases, again there could be some of those cases that are
I accept that there are always cases and we have to bring humanity into this.
Yeah.
But I'm simply asking factual questions. Of the 388 cases identified at the end of 2016, have they been dealt with? Has a recovery plan been put in place? There was no recoupment plan in place for that identified number.
I'd have to come back to the committee with a breakdown of those.
I think that's important in a sense, not that I want to zone in, and I realise in the overall scheme it's a smaller fraction, and I put it in context. But at the same time, a lot of the changes that have been mentioned here today, I think have sprung from the analysis by the Controller and Auditor General. And that's to be welcomed, and you've taken on board all the recommendations. But I'm wondering how robust your scheme is when it didn't throw this up itself, this wonderful new scheme, this wonderful new IT system.
So I think probably it's worth mentioning the existence of an overpayment working group that was established in 2015.
I've read all that.
Yeah, no, the only reason I'm bringing that up is that there was a number of recommendations arising from that group that commenced activity, I suppose, prior to the Controller and Auditor General's report.
Okay.
But perhaps again that report by the Controller and Auditor General probably again focused, the need for action and activity in particular areas. But for example, reporting was one that the overpayments working group had recommended, and indeed a more robust root cause analysis of what causes overpayments. So that work had started ahead of the Controller and Auditor General's report, but certainly the report, and as it related to 2016, obviously was relevant in that context as well, in highlighting where areas are needed.
The root analysis report has been completed.
There was a very significant review, which I suppose dropped the root cause analysis to a more granular
level. So this time
level.
next year, what is your prediction for this time next year? Will there still be 388 cases but no recoupment plan for over a year? Will that be dealt with, gone?
I mean, again, it's very difficult to make a commitment in terms of particular cases because, again, not knowing what the circumstance of a case might be into the future. Okay. But I certainly think the management of overpayments in terms of ageing and activity related to it is something that's very much in focus for us. And again, as I say, our reporting mechanisms have strengthened that now to be able to focus on age cases.
Another fact identified was 648 case management system overpayment and no value had been recorded.
Yes, so I think I mentioned earlier that the establishment of a value is the first step in confirming an overpayment. And
just explain to me how this happened.
Well, I suppose just there's a delay within the system, but what I can say to you is what we're looking at is reorganisation internally to centralise the calculation of values. It has been a distributed function within our payroll shared service centre, so we recognise that I suppose, can cause delay where it's spread across a number of different functions. So we intend to centralise that so that the calculation of values, that we reduce and eliminate delay there, because that is key. That is key to the recoupment process commencing. So until a value is confirmed, the recoupment process cannot commence.
Absolutely, that's just common sense. We don't need an IT system to tell us all. That's common sense. You have to have a value and then you go and recoup it. But the weaknesses identified was the IT system, as I understand it. You're shaking your head. Well, let me just put my question first. The overall management, that it showed a snapshot in time as opposed to the history. It didn't show, for example, cases were closed and nobody knew if the repayments had stopped or not.
I think one, and again, this is probably...
Just one second, because heads are being shaken. So that was one problem identified. The snapshot in time was a problem. It wasn't given an overall look at it. I would have thought, like, you went for a very expensive IT system, one should be able to see that. A third thing is the confusion, and you've told me the confusion is gone. So certain departments thought you were looking at the legacy cases, other departments thought it was theirs. Different reasons. Okay, that confusion is gone, is it? So everybody knows what they're doing now. So go back then to the snapshot in time, the IT system, that meant there was a lot of physical manipulation of input that she had to physically put in this. So can you clarify, is that changed?
Yeah, I suppose there's a couple of points there. I mean, one is picked up by what we referred to earlier in terms of, again, improved reporting that's looking at where cases are in terms of status and balances outstanding. So that will improve that picture, and for finance officers to be able to track as well. The other thing I suppose to remember here is that we had a situation where not all of the payrolls were within the shared service centre.
Yes.
So the reconciliation between what was being recouped in a department and not necessarily through a payroll that was being administered by the shared service caused another layer, I suppose, of reconciliation challenge. Now we have all the payrolls within shared service, so we have a better view end to end, and therefore would be able to see where a recoupment stopped and why that recoupment had stopped, and to follow that up fairly quickly. So it's, I suppose, again, there's points in time where the situation in 2016 certainly presented more challenge in trying to manage it from an end-to-end process. That, as I say, with the full migration of payrolls, will improve that.
Okay, and just the final, I asked it there, but I asked too much together, and I apologise. Cases that were closed, I forget the figure, the number of closed. Yeah, in 2016, 4,419 overpayment cases. I'm reading from the Controller's report on page 148. In 2016, 4,419 overpayment cases with a value of 4.4 million were closed. But due to the limitations on the information available, the examination cannot quantify how much of this amount had been recovered at the year end.
Yeah, so we know that there was 2 million recovered in 2016. That's the figure that we can confirm was collected. The reconciliation between that amount and the amount of 4 million, the link between individual cases is where we're trying to get to in terms of our reporting function.
But how were those cases closed then?
Closed is closed to recoupment. So a case closed, it's a terminology, I suppose, on our case management system.
So much was written off then?
No, not written off. Okay. No, closed means that it moved into the recoupment process.
All right.
And we know from our collection that 2 million was collected in 2016.
Okay. Well, I misunderstood the word.
It's
closed.
Yeah. It's complex, but we don't write off anything.
Okay, Gurmagh.
Thank you, Deputy.
Deputy